This episode is brought to you by Indeed. You're ready to move your business forward, but first, you need to find the right team. Start your search with Indeed-sponsored jobs. It can help you reach qualified candidates fast, ensuring your listing is the first one they see. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs are 90% more likely to report a hire than non-sponsored jobs. See the results for yourself. Get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
Oh, Hilton stay, your beds are soft and cozy. No lumpy couch, no stiff futon, no shower line at crack of dawn. Oh, Hilton stay.
When you want holiday comfort you can count on, it matters where you stay. Enjoy comfortable rooms and friendly service when you stay with Hilton instead. Save up to 25% this season when you book with Hilton. Hilton for the stay. Terms apply.
Here's my 30-second story with Guinness. As soon as my sister and I get home for the holidays, we don't even unpack. We head straight to our pub. The bartender already knows our order, Guinness and fries. We laugh all night, catch up with old friends, and walk home with faces sore from smiling. It's one of my favorite nights of the year. That was my 30-second story with Guinness.
Guinness Draft Stout. Please enjoy responsibly. Imported by Diageo Beer Company, USA, New York, New York.
Hello and welcome to The Price of Football, the show that looks at the money behind the beautiful game, with me, producer Guy, standing in for Kevin Day, and Liverpool University's Kieran Maguire. And it is Newsday today, Kieran. But before we get into several stories that we've got today, let's have an update on Kevin's situation. And I understand you've been receiving some messages from well-placed sources about Kevin's condition.
The secret princess, as our tour manager is lovingly referred to, Princess Julian. And I've also been in contact with Kevin's family as well. It looks as if the great man is going to be released from hospital in the next day or two, and he'll be heading home, which I know he'll love. He misses Ali, his wonderful wife. He misses Smudge, his cat.
Yeah, of course, Smudge. Do we know how Smudge is?
Well, probably curled up in a ball, knowing Smudge. Having been to Kevin's house on a couple of occasions. Yeah, stalking pigeons, the usual. The usual, as we would anticipate. But that's fantastic news, and we will, of course, keep up to date. And again, I'd just like to thank from myself and all of us at the team, thanks for all the kind messages to Kevin. It helps keep his pecker up. And it's very moving.
Yeah, we have forwarded all the messages that we've received so far, so thank you to everyone for those. If you would like to send Kevin a message and you haven't done already, or you'd like to send him another one, that's fine. questions@priceoffootball.com. We're going to forward everything to him. As I say, everything that we've received so far has gone over to him, and he's enjoyed reading them, I know. So yeah, any more, feel free to send them in. We will forward them on. All right, so let's get into the news stories. Let's just start off, actually. There's been a lot of noise around one of the most important clubs on our agenda this year, which is Sheffield Wednesday. Just what's the latest there, Kieran? Because I know there's been a couple of there's not been any significant news, I don't think, but there's been a couple of moving parts over the last few days.
That's right. There has been an announcement from the administrators. I think initially they were hoping to have a deadline of the 5th of December. That has come and gone. And this is sort of textbook corporate speak. The delay is, and I quote, for various reasons. Well, that really doesn't help us particularly. But the good news, as far as Sheffield Wednesday is concerned, is A, that there is a lot of interest. We are fully aware that Mike Ashley is one of the bidders. By all accounts, his initial offer of 20 million, which I thought was lowballing a wee bit, but that's Mike Ashley's choice, has been rejected. He's not walked away from the table, is what we hear. I think there's been offer from a couple of American parties, and certainly there's been stories circulating that there could be a merged offer from two potential bidders. That's not necessarily a good thing or a bad thing. It's just a thing. The chances of everything being settled before Christmas, I think have now got to be deemed to be close to zero, because even if the administrators accept a bid, the new owners would then have to go through due process as far as the owners and directors test is concerned with the EFL. Not quite sure where that would stand as far as the independent football regulator is concerned, but we might be talking to somebody with perhaps a connection to the regulator in the next day or two. So perhaps that's one of the questions I could ask of them, and we'll take that from there.
Is that one of the regulators texting you now?
That could be a secret owl for all I'd rather not say, but I'll switch my phone off. So that's where we are. As far as the club's progress is concerned, on the pitch, it's difficult given the constraints they've been operating under. So that's where we are. So it's moving towards the end game. People are still going to lose out, though. We're talking about unsecured creditors getting 25% of what's owed to them as being a good thing. It's not. It means that they're losing 75%, and also that payment will not be until a long period in the future, because these things do tend to drag on. But we've got a Sheffield Wednesday, which is good. We've got a lot of interest, which is good, and we'll have a new owner, ideally confirmed by January.
And as you've mentioned before, a lot of those creditors that you mentioned are probably local firms, suppliers that are going to get 25p in the pound, aren't they?
That's right, and many of them will be Wednesday fans who, and I certainly, when I've spoken to people involved in administrations before, some of them have said, I've given the club additional credit because I let my heart rule my head, because I happen to be a supporter of the club, and therefore you don't ever conceive of a football club going bust. Whereas you might take a more common sense, a more sort of a stricter business approach to giving extended credit to some of your other customers. With the football club, if you are a fan, it makes it that much more difficult. You don't want to be seen as the big bad wolf, and therefore you do have a lot of concern about the ripple effect it will have on suppliers if they are small local in nature.
And just to be clear then, in terms of, you're saying it's very unlikely anything will happen before Christmas now. For the club, it will be business as usual over the festive period in terms of fixtures, and then the process is likely to restart again in
Yes,
January.
and it was good to see, and fair play to the administrators, that I think that because of the trials and tribulations that employees have been under the last few months of the Chancery regime, I think the November payroll was brought forward a couple of days, and if they do the same in December, again, that just gives you that feel-good factor, that you're not having to go through that fairly horrendous experience of wondering whether you will get paid in time for when your direct debits and standing orders go out. That shouldn't apply to anybody, regardless of their job, regardless of the company that they work for. But ours is a football finance show, and clearly we focus on that particular industry.
Mm-hmm. It feels like a bit of a 1-2 going from Sheffield Wednesday to Exeter City. We've done it a few times recently, but we're going to do it again. That's because Exeter City also in financial difficulty, but they provided an update on their financial situation, and they've actually been given quite a big boost by the FA Cup draw too, haven't they?
That's right. I think there's a couple of really big positives. There have been changes. I think there's an acknowledgement that governance issues at the club have been wanting, which has allowed for it's a dull and tedious, poor internal controls and poor governance and poor authorization have led to money being spent which shouldn't necessarily have been spent, and not enough care taken in terms of the sort of the ongoing cash flow. And as somebody that comes from an insolvency background, I've always said this, and I've said this to people connected to when I've been writing the research reports for the government. is that businesses don't go bust in football, owners go bust, and ultimately it all comes down to your management of cash as to how long, when the owner is a problem, the football club catches a cold or the influenza on the back of that. But I think there's two positives as far as Exeter City is concerned. First of all, in relation to Jay Stansfield. Jay Stansfield became the most expensive, by a country mile, player ever signed in League One when he joined Birmingham City about 18 months ago. Initially, he was on loan from Fulham to Birmingham City, and he went for £15 million. But he originally joined Fulham from Exeter City, and Exeter City had a sell-on clause. So what Fulham have done, by all accounts, is that they've said to Exeter City, although not all of the elements of the sell-on clause have been triggered, we're going to pay you early. So that, there are always set dates for these things. Now, whether this has been sort of a Macquarie style, we'll pay you early, but we'll pay you at a discount, I don't know. And I remember when Gareth Barry joined Aston Villa, he was at Brighton at the time, and this was when Brighton were super skint. They were playing at Gillingham. They were trying to move back to Brighton. Yeah, the club's finances were very much on a day-to-day basis, and I think that they had quite a potentially large sell-on clause that Aston Villa had. And what Aston Villa did was they went back to Brighton and said, instead of giving you 15% of any sale price for Gareth Barry, tell you what, we'll give you £500,000 now and we call it quits. And Brighton said, we're skint, we'll take it. And that's part of business. Rightly or wrongly, that is how business operates. And of course, Gareth Barry subsequently went to Manchester City for a substantial sum, and Brighton, with hindsight, we've done many different things in life. But if you need cash, sometimes you have to accept the position and take the offer as it was. So I suspect that Fulham are aware of Exeter City's predicament, and therefore they've gone. Now, it could be that they've been incredibly generous. It could be that they've said, a little bit for you, a little bit for us. Everybody's a winner. We'll wait and see. So that's one good thing in terms of cash flow. I can't stress the importance of cash flow enough. The second is that Exeter City, having beaten Wickham, having stuffed Wickham in the second round of the FA Cup, and commiserations, by the way, to Spencer Gore, because his Chelmsford City were at home in the second round to another non-league club, and they lost, and they would have been away to Grimsby Town in the third round of the FA Cup, with all the glamour that brings, an EFL club, and to be able to say that they were in the third round of the FA Cup, I think for the first time since 1971, where they played Ipswich Town and lost 3-1, and I was there at the time with my bicycle. Let's say a different world, a different environment in those days. But I was asked by an Exeter fan to say, how much is this potentially worth? And I'm always fairly prudent and cautious when I do my sums. I think that Manchester City will be selling tickets for lower than they would normally charge. It's up to the two teams to negotiate a price. But if we get a crowd of 40,000, and people have to remember that the costs of hosting the match have to be taken out of the consideration. VAT has to be taken out of the consideration, in terms of the net. There's no reason why Exeter City shouldn't be getting at least £250,000 for a 40,000 capacity match. And if it's higher than that, 300, 350, £400,000 is not impossible. Because I say my figures are quite cautious. So again, cash flow, that cash will hit Exeter City's bank account in mid-January once everything's been settled. That's good news for the club. And it just gives them the ability to have confidence that they'll see out the season. One of my one of my secret Grecians was genuinely concerned about whether Exeter City would be able to survive this season. But I think these two elements, they're not windfalls. They are these two financial benefits should allow that to be the case.
How big a deal is it then? Just that cup tie against City, in terms of the amount of money that's going out, is that going to make a massive difference, or is it just going to keep the wolf from the door for a couple of weeks?
It allows them to pay the wages that month with that much greater degree of confidence. And you talk to any business. You think about all the time that you spent on Five Live and Wake Up to Money when we first met, Guy, which was probably 12, 13 years ago in all probability. It was talking to local businesses, and you do live on a month-to-month basis. Yes, you'll have a short, a medium, and a long-term budget, but any additional sales that just means, I can definitely pay the next 3 months' wages, and then we go from there in terms of business. So yes, it's the wonder of the FA Cup, the joy of the FA Cup is on the footballing side, but the business elements now are critical and are spoken about, sadly, too often.
Yeah, nice to get a bit of good news. And I think you may be the first person in history to utter the words "an away tie at Grimsby" and all the glamour that brings.
I love Grimsby. I had one of my greatest... I owe being a chartered accountant to Grimsby Town, because I was, we go back, I think it was 84, 85. And I was doing my accounting exams, and I was going through a bit of a low patch. And it was a week before my exams. And in those days, you had to do 6 exams in 3 days, so it was quite intense. And I'd lost confidence in myself. And I remember saying, I'm going to fail all of these exams. I'm going to get sacked. I've wasted my own going into this career in accounting. And I'm going to watch Brighton play at Grimsby instead on a Tuesday night, which is a spectacularly dumb thing to do. But I'd given up. And Brighton needed to win in order to potentially get into the playoffs. So I went... and Brighton were 2-0 down with 12 minutes to go. And I thought, this sort of reflects where I am in life today. And then Frank Worthington, Terry Connor with 2, and I think it was Dean Saunders, scored 4 goals in the last 12 minutes. And I came home and I was absolutely buzzing. And I went to the track, no, stop this for a game folded. And I revised. And I passed my finals and became a chartered accountant. So Grimsby Town, you are part of where I am today, and I never forget that.
Wow. Part of the history of the price of football, no less.
That's right, yes.
I take it all back. I'm sorry, Grimsby Town. I apologise.
If you've shopped online, chances are you've bought from a business powered by Shopify. You know that purple Shop Pay button you see at checkout? The one that makes buying so incredibly easy? That's Shopify. And there's a reason so many businesses sell with it, because Shopify makes it incredibly easy to start and run your business. Shopify is the commerce platform behind 10% of all e-commerce in the US. Sign up for your $1 per month trial and start selling today at shopify.com/promo. Go to shopify.com/promo.
This episode is sponsored by Shopify. When we started The Price of Football and things started to take off, it all got a bit overwhelming at times as we were suddenly sorting out recordings, interviews, live shows, and our online store. When you're starting off with something new, it seems like your to-do list keeps growing every day with new tasks, and that list can easily begin to overrun your life. Finding the right tool that not only helps you out, but simplifies everything can be such a game changer. For millions of businesses, that tool is Shopify.
Shopify is the commerce platform behind millions of businesses around the world, from household names like Mattel and Gymshark to brands just getting started. With Shopify, you get your own design studio that includes hundreds of ready-to-use templates. You can accelerate your content creation with Shopify's AI tools that write product descriptions, page headlines, and even enhance your product photography. And you can easily create email and social media campaigns wherever your customers are scrolling or strolling. If you're ready to sell, you're ready for Shopify.
Turn your big business idea into with Shopify on your side. Sign up for a £1 per month trial period at shopify.co.uk/priceoffootball, all lowercase. So go to shopify.co.uk/priceoffootball to take your business to the next level today. That's shopify.co.uk/priceoffootball.
All right, this next story, has raised our eyebrows, hasn't it? Raised our heart rate. We've got to be careful what we say, but let's do it because we know what we've got to say, don't we? So this is about the Brighton owner Tony Bloom and his issue with a report in The Guardian.
That's right. People know that I'm a Brighton fan. So if we didn't cover the story, I think we could be rightly accused of self-censorship, which I don't think is appropriate. Mm-hmm. There was initially a report in The Guardian last week that Tony Bloom, he owns Brighton Hove Albion. He is also connected to a company called Star Lizard. And Star Lizard is an analytics organisation, and it analyses sporting events. And the aim is sort of broadly twofold. A to be able to advise football clubs or clients, and he does that via another company called Jamestown Analytics. But secondly, Tony Bloom has been involved in the betting industry. He's bought and sold bookmakers. He's worked for bookmakers. I've met him on 2 occasions. I've described him as, I work at university with incredibly talented and boffin-like individuals. Tony is probably the smartest person I've been in a room with. Just listening to him and seeing the way that his thought pattern. He's also a professional poker player, so he's a successful professional poker player. So somebody that is able to crunch data, not just accurately, but very, very quickly. So the problem with bookmakers is that for you or I, Guy, a problem gambler is somebody who has lost a couple of bets and has then chased those losses and has ended up at 2:00 in the morning putting this month's rent and the holiday fund has just gone on trying to guess a result in the Bolivian second division, and it's not come there. And this bloke is sitting there and he's crying and he's perhaps had a couple of drinks and he's in a bad way. For me, that is what I mean by a problem gambler and all of the implications of that. For the gambling industry, a problem gambler is somebody like Tony Bloom. Because the whole point about being a gambling company is that you have the edge. And if that 52-48 edge in favour of the bookies becomes a 49-51 in favour of the person placing the bets, and you are placing bets in terms of tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of pounds, then the gambling company potentially is going to lose. So what they normally do is they say, we're going to close your account down. And they all talk to each other. And that's why when you talk to professional gamblers, they've got a bit of a bee in their bonnet. So therefore, how do you go about this? Well, there are overseas gambling organisations. There are private gambling organisations through which the big bettors, the big hitters, will place their wagers. But even so, would they accept a bet from Tony Bloom? I don't know. So the accusation, and in terms of this ongoing court case, is that Star Lizard has been using a frontman, and a frontman is what's known as a whale. It's a person who is an existing gambler, normally an unsuccessful one, who you then go to and says, "Yeah, place a few bets on behalf of us, and here's the deal: if you lose, we cover your losses, and if you win, you take a fraction of the winnings." So from the gambler's point of view, that's where they stand. Perfectly legal. Okay, nothing wrong with that. And the original article in The Guardian said that there was somebody who'd accused Star Lizard of using them as a whale, then stopping the account, then saying, "Well, we don't want your services anymore," but still placing bets in the names of this person. So that's a case that will drag its own way through. There was a follow-up article in the Times which focused more on sort of Star Lizard. Again, nothing particularly over exciting. Stuff which we all know is in the public domain. And then there was a second article in The Guardian where the accusations went a bit further. So by this stage, I think Tony Bloom had then said, he put up a notice up on the Brighton website to say, "I have an arrangement with the Football Association. I am allowed to bet on football, but I'm not allowed to bet on Brighton Hove Albion. And that's right and proper because you've got access to inside information and we want to protect the integrity of the game. And I am not allowed to place bets on competitions in which my club are participating." Again, that makes sense. And that applies also to Matthew Benham, who is the owner of Brentford, who ironically used to work for Tony Bloom. And those two don't have a very good relationship these days. Again, that's all in the public domain. And then there was a second article in The Guardian. If you want, what I suggest you do is read it. I'm not even going to quote it because I don't know where we stand. It went a lot further in terms of allegations which have come from somebody on social media. Read The Guardian, look at something on social media, and form your own opinions. And these allegations were more serious because this effectively was personally against Bloom as opposed to somebody's got a dispute with a company. And as a result of that, Brighton on Sunday morning decided that they were going to ban Guardian journalists and photographers from attending the Amex. And in my opinion, I don't think that's a good look. I've spoken to some of our secret lawyers, some of whom are involved in what you might call the reputation side of the legal process. And they said, we wouldn't normally advise our clients to go down that route. I think it looks bad because it creates a second story. It now allows the Guardian, and I'm a guest on the Guardian Football Weekly. It allows the Guardian to say, right, we got yet another story, and it's now people are saying, why Brighton doing this? If nothing bad's happened, then why ban the journalism? And also, look at what's happened earlier this year. We've got Hartlepool United have banned the local newspaper. They banned the local radio station from Hartlepool. I remember when Brighton were in a really bad way, again, back in the mid-90s, we had rogue owners, and I can assure you 100% of Brighton fans think the opposite. They think Tony Bloom's a great owner. They had rogue owners at the time, and the local newspaper was banned off from reporting, which means that now a proportion of the Brighton fan base are unhappy. So I genuinely don't think it's a logical decision. By all means, say, and you know, Guy, that you're a trained journalist. We fundamentally disagree with what you report. We are considering our legal options, and if we involve defamation, we will sue. But at the same time, I disagree with what you say, but we're not going to stop you from attending because it's given the story additional legs. And if they'd done nothing, in my view, we'd spent the whole weekend discussing Mo Salah's hissy fit, because that sells newspapers. That generates clicks, that generates interaction as far as radio shows and websites are concerned. And now we've got this additional story. So, I don't think Brighton have been over smart here.
All right, we'll leave that there. We'll definitely keep you updated as things develop on that story. But moving on to our next story, the new independent football regulator, and is this the first time they're getting involved now? I'm not sure. He said the story is it's taking, quotes, urgent action after one of the public faces of the summer takeover at Morecambe was sanctioned over suspected terrorist links. How do we start to unpick this one?
Yes, this is clearly an investigation into Gurpreet Singh, who was sort of a marketing or director of marketing and communication at Morecambe, and that he was linked to, I think, 2 terrorist organisations in terms of funding, and as a consequence, he has been dismissed in effect from his role. His assets have been frozen. His UK assets have been frozen. Com's point of view, there's a really good podcast called When It Hits the Fan, presented by Simon Lewis and David Yelland, which I listen to because I have to have something to do whilst I'm doing updating my spreadsheets. Which I recommend, and that's all about reputation management and so on. Morecambe, I think the goodwill that was generated towards the new owners has been evaporating quite quickly, to such an extent that 2 of the directors of Morecambe FC, local directors, have also resigned. And if you take a look at their Facebook pages, and they've explained why, they just feel that promises haven't necessarily been delivered on, communication's been poor. They feel that they have fiduciary duties as directors which they can't fulfil to the extent that they like, and it all feels a little bit icky. The football club itself has put out a couple of public announcements, which to me look as if they've been produced on ChatGPT. It was lots of bland words, which we never really said anything in detail. But yes, we know that we must do harder, and we must do harder. Yes, you do, and you need to be not putting out website things. You need to be getting to the local newspaper and getting interviews and getting on the local radio station as well, and fronting up face to face. You can do that on the price of football if you want as well. We're more than happy to have that communication with you, but it's not a good look. Morecambe's results have been poor following the initial adrenaline rush of the first match at home, and they had a 96-minute winner and all of those positive. Since then, results haven't been good. Myself and the Baroness and Princess Julian, we were sat with the Shrimpers Trust, or the Shrimps Trust, at the FSA Awards, and they were great people, but they were hinting at the time that things were less than perfect.
Yeah. So what happens next then? I mentioned that the regulator is taking action, but what's the regulator? What could they do?
Well, the regulator does have a licensing system. The regulator does have powers, and the powers of the regulator in terms of who can go forward in terms of being a director or a senior executive. So whereas we've had the owners and directors test for both the Premier League and the EFL, the powers of the regulator is called ODSI. Owners, directors, and senior executives, and it'll be interesting to see just how broad that definition spreads. I know this was one of the issues that the the likes of, ironically, of Brighton and Crystal Palace have objected to is this sort of mission creep in terms of monitoring who can do what. But I'm certainly aware of people at individual football clubs who didn't fall within the definition of owners or directors, but were in a senior decision-making role, which could have been against the benefit of the club. So I don't know whether Gurpreet Singh was a formal director of the club. So, if you're a director of communications, doesn't mean that you're necessarily a director at Companies House. And it looks like the pressure that's been put on the club has resulted in him leaving.
Okay. Ipswich Town are the subject of our next story, and that's because they've announced changes to their ownership structure. And as a result of announcing those changes, that's resulted in a new sort of valuation for the club, hasn't it? And that valuation has raised several eyebrows across the EFL and beyond.
That's right. I mean, Ipswich were originally acquired, was about 4 years ago, 3 to 4 years ago, for around about £30 million. They subsequently had sold a minority stake in the club 2 years ago to, again, an American company. And they were bought by I think it was an Arizona pension fund, which is, at the time, that's strange. And now it looks like they've sold another minority element. There's a company called Portman Holdings, and it values Ipswich Town in the region of 300 to 350 million pounds, which is an incredible sum of money, because the Saudi Arabian Public Investment Fund bought Newcastle United with its 52,000 capacity stadium and Premier League occupancy for £305 million from Mike Ashley 4 years ago. So I think this is reflective of inflation as far as club valuations are concerned. If there are positives associated with the club, Dejan Chansiri, he was trying to sell Sheffield Wednesday Football Club for 150 million. Why was nobody snapping his hand off on that? Because there were so many negatives. So I think Ipswich, the stadium is in good condition. They've got the benefit of parachute payments. They've still got a fairly decent squad. And ironically, a couple of days ago, my little ping from Companies House went ping, and it was Ed Sheeran Limited. And Ed is, of course, a big Ipswich Town fan, and he took out a dividend from Ed Sheeran Limited, I think of around about £41 million in 2024. And I said, well, why is he doing that? He's very successful. And again, I will never criticise anybody for earning a large sum of money when they have talent. But he bought a minority stake in Ipswich Town, and nobody knows how much he paid. So it looks like a proportion of his dividends would have been. I mean, it could have also might taken money out for tax reasons, for tax planning reasons. Will have gone into the coffers of the club. So it does show, despite the fact that football clubs are losing money, the overriding swell of investors is we believe that there is money to be made, and that they will continue to pile in.
Cardiff City are next, and this is a story that obviously we've been covering for some time now, and it's a depressing one, but the latest development in the death of Emiliano Sala and the ongoing dispute around that transfer and everything else. And that's because Cardiff City have been arguing their case at a hearing this week, and they're saying that they're owed more than £100 million in damages due to the fact that transfer never happened. So, just to talk us through the latest, Kieran, and what's likely to happen next, because it's not pretty, is it?
It's not, we're talking about the death of a young man. And for people not familiar with what happened, in 2019, Cardiff City agreed a £15 million fee with the French club Nantes for the Argentinian striker Emiliano Sala. And he was on a flight. It was a private booking of a flight, and it went down. And he lost his life. The pilot lost his life as well. And then there was a fairly grubby public spat between Cardiff City and Nantes as to whether or not the transfer fee was due. And I think he was flying back from Cardiff to France when the tragedy occurred, and that went in favour of the French football club. So Cardiff City had to pay the fee, but they are also suing for negligence. They said that Nantes, because they used an agent, I think they used the son of an agent called Willie Mackay, who, Google him, in terms of his reputation, that the flight was effectively illegal, there was negligence, and Cardiff City that season were relegated by 1 point. The argument put forward by the club was that had Emiliano Sala signed for the club, he would have made a sufficient difference to have got that 1 more point that was required, or perhaps 2 more points. I think 2 more points. They got 1 more point. They would have been equal with Brighton. I can't remember who had the better goal difference, and therefore they would have avoided relegation, and therefore they would have received more money from the Premier League. So what will happen now is that a decision will be made in court, and we're expecting the verdict now in March 2026. This is the issue of consequential loss. It's sort of I'm a teacher, you're a broadcaster, we're not lawyers, but my understanding of consequential loss, because I have done expert witness work on disputes between clubs for things which might happen in the future. So what you do is you say, well, let's look at probabilities. Let's look at there are knowns and there are unknowns, and it's a bit like an insurance claim. If you think that there's a 20% chance of a hurricane damaging a big property and the property's worth £100 million, the insurance company which says, well, it's going to cost you a premium of £20 million. So I don't think that there's any chance of Cardiff City being awarded £120 million should they win the case, and it's up clearly for the judge to review the evidence and make a decision. But that is the amount of the claim, and then you say, let's look at it from a probability perspective, and there will have been expert witnesses from all of the surrounding parties who will have said, well, in our opinion, based on our knowledge, this is what we think the consequences will be. And none of us got a crystal ball, and none of us can change history and time, and because if we would, Emilio Sala wouldn't have got on that flight. But that is the process. And the most unedifying element of this, of course, is we are talking about a young man whose talents are being treated as a commodity and as a potential asset and as a potential cash flow for a football club. And I absolutely get it's business, but it's just so yucky.
It is, but we will revisit this story in March then, when the verdict comes through, if it comes through then as expected.
When the holidays start to feel a bit repetitive, reach for a Sprite Winter Spiced Cranberry and put your twist on tradition. A bold cranberry and winter spice flavor fusion, Sprite Winter Spiced Cranberry is a refreshing way to shake things up this sipping season. And only for a limited time. Sprite. Obey your thirst.
In Walmart Sue Nouville, time was ticking away. Only a few nights left till the big holiday. But last-minute gifters had no need to worry. Walmart Express Delivery got their gifts in a hurry. From Nintendo to Nespresso and Lego flowers, they could check off their lists in as fast as an hour. All of Nouville, East, West, South, and North, could order gifts up until 5 p.m. on December 24th. So this holiday, just do as the Who's do. With gift delivery this fast, they all gasped. From Walmart? Who knew? Subject to availability, terms and fees apply.
Two stories concerning Wrexham this week. The first is that Ryan Reynolds and Rob Mac have sold part of their stake in the club. And the club's also been given an £18 million grant, public money, to redevelop the stadium. So, yeah, just talk us through these two.
Sure. The American investment company, this huge fund, Apollo Sports, and we're actually discussing Apollo 2 or 3 weeks ago because they acquired Atletico Madrid. They have now bought a minority stake in a Wrexham Football Club. Now, we don't know how big that stake is. We do know that Reynolds and Mac sold another minority stake, we think around about 10, perhaps 15% to other American investors 12 months ago. Reynolds and McElhenney acquired a Wrexham Football Club in the National League for £2 million. If some of the rumours are to be believed, Apollo have bought 10% of the club for somewhere in the region of 30 to 35 million, which values the club as a whole. Again, championship club, not dissimilar to the price we've been discussing in terms of Ipswich Town, somewhere in the region of 300 million. The fundamentals of valuation would say that the club is not worth that, but football is a trophy asset industry. So business fundamentals, valuation fundamentals, spreadsheet nerds such as myself, we know we have to throw the book away when it comes to this. But the fact that an organisation as cold-eyed, as disinterested in football as can be, they're there to make money on behalf of their clients, is prepared to go down this route. And I do think that Wrexham is very much an outlier, and this is not a criticism. I remember going to the Fans United event at Wrexham in probably around about 2003, 2004, when again they'd had rogue owners. They were in deep trouble at the time, and I've always said the hospitality that day was very, very moving. The fans were absolutely brilliant as well. The value in Wrexham Football Club comes from the connection to Reynolds and Mac and the documentary. The reason why Wrexham sell 100,000 shirts a year is that a huge proportion of those are to people who are fans of Welcome to Wrexham, the documentary. It's now become a tourist attraction in its own right. If you take away Reynolds and Mac, will those people continue to have the same degree of enthusiasm for Wrexham? Will they still come to the town in the same numbers? I think not. So I think part of the value of the brand of Wrexham is linked to the owners, but the owners are smart enough to realise that as well. And also, they genuinely have fallen in love with Wrexham Football Club, because there is an element of romance in this. And what might have been seen as a bit of a giggle at the time has been transformed into a more concrete relationship. So I would imagine that Apollo and the other American investors probably have some contracts or some form of agreement, sort of golden handcuffs agreements with Reynolds and Mac, which says that you've got to commit to your involvement with the club for at least the next 5 years, because we might want to extract value going forwards. And if they get promoted to the Premier League, again, you've got another series of the programme, and you've got their series first year in the Premier League, and that part of the fairy tale is able to continue.
Yeah, of course. I mean, they're such a big part of the story, aren't they? And it is all, as we've talked about before, linked into a whole multimedia operation. But then, what about this grant for the stadium? Then is that something that's just been awarded this week? That's not connected, presumably, to them selling part of their stake in the club?
No. I think it's fair to say there's been a bit of pushback on this. Wrexham Football Club, as all companies can, they applied for a grant. If you take a look at the English Football Association and the grants that they applied for to redevelop Wembley Stadium 20, 25 years ago. They received well over £100 million in grants. The critics say, why should Hollywood stars who are independently wealthy be in receipt of government money? And now the grants have been applied for and the grants have been given because one of the terms of the grants is that Wrexham Football Club must spend enough money on infrastructure such that, I'm going to call it the racecourse ground, I know it's now got a new name, but it's such that the stadium will be in a position where it can host international football matches for the Welsh Football Club, so for Wales. And people will say, okay, but they're already playing Cardiff all the time. Do they need to play in North Wales? Now, you and I, Guy, I'm old enough to remember Wales playing at Wrexham way back when. And I think there is always a good case for saying that the national team should go around and play in different places. So part of the pitch for the application of the grant was that we're going to host international matches. If they're only hosting one match a year, is that a good use of £18 million of taxpayer money? That's a separate discussion to be had. But that is why the application has gone in, and the application has been granted on that basis. They were spending money as well, and they're spending their own money on increasing the capacity of the stadium. I think this will further increase the capacity, which will mean that you go through the threshold for satisfying FIFA and UEFA rules.
Okay, the Wrexham story rumbles on. I'm sure there'll be more to come from those two and from the stadium as well. All right, two final stories today, both World Cup related. It's obviously we're closing in on the World Cup, aren't we? It's not long to go before the 2026 World Cup, which we're, as you mentioned last time, Kieran, there's always a lot of noise before the World Cup, but when it starts, it's always good, isn't it? But two stories ahead of that, which the first is, and this I must say I was not surprised at all to read this headline when I saw it after we watched the draw on Friday. But an official complaint has been submitted to FIFA's Ethics Committee alleging repeated breaches of FIFA's duty of political neutrality by FIFA's president, Gianni Infantino. And as I say, I am not surprised to read that. I think this must be particularly related to the awarding of the FIFA Peace Prize to Donald Trump and the fawning, should we say, over Donald Trump that went on at that ceremony.
Yes, FIFA classifies itself as a charity, and this is part of FIFA's approach to all World Cups, in the sense that if a country is hosting the tournament, FIFA says you can't tax us because we're a charity, and the domestic government where the tournament is being held has to accede to that, and also you can't tax the players for what they've earned during the 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks, however long it's going to be now, of the tournament, because it effectively becomes a tax. Those players will still pay tax back home as part of their worldwide earnings, but not to the United States government itself. All of that fairly standard FIFA fare. And in order for FIFA to achieve that aim, they've said, we are a global organisation. We have no party political affiliations. If you take a look at some of the public pronouncements by Gianni Infantino, he has been fulsome of praise of President Trump. And the argument put forward, this is a sort of human rights group, has said, in our opinion, these comments go above and beyond what FIFA are allowed to do according to its own constitution. And as a consequence, they've said, right, we're going to hold you. Now, whether the FIFA Ethics Committee are going to take up on this, who appoints the people on the Ethics Committee, who pays the people on the FIFA Ethics Committee, is something which we will watch with interest. but it is indicative of. I think we all know that there's a line in the sand, and I think Gianni Infantino's approach to that line in the sand has been to summon his inner Jonathan Edwards and triple jump over it and go. That's a long way back.
You're right. He has just obliterated that line in the sand, hasn't he? So, well, potentially. So let's see what FIFA's ethics committee does with that information. All right, final story. This is an estimate of cost in terms of how much it would cost for England fans to follow England in every match at the World Cup should they get all the way through to the final. And I mean, I'll be honest, this seemed like quite a conservative estimate to me, but this estimate
I think it's a very conservative estimate, yeah.
It'll cost an individual fan £10,000 to go to every match. Now, who's put forward this estimate? And yeah, this seems like that seems quite low to me. I mean, I'm not someone who frequently follows England at tournaments, but just going anywhere these days seems, expensive. But yeah, £10,000, I guess, just even that's a lot of money either way, isn't it?
That's right. I think this might have come from the FSA. That's assuming that you can get tickets when they go on sale at the next round. Now, I think 8% of tickets in each individual match are available to the two countries participating. So you'd have to be a member of the England Supporters Club. You'd then have to be lucky in the ballots and get these tickets. And these will be presumably the lowest price tickets, of which, again, only a small fraction are at that lowest price. The vast majority are in the next tiers. If you take a look, there's been a couple of articles, and I think there's something in the Athletic that hotel prices have risen by 300% to 400% now that we know who's playing when. And I'll be honest, Guy, I work in the city of Liverpool, and until I bought my apartment, I was staying in hotels. When Liverpool were at home on a Tuesday or Wednesday night, hotel prices went up, I can assure you, more than 300 or 400. And it's the same in Manchester, where you live, when United in particular, and sometimes City as well, if they're at home. And that's not having a dig at tourist fans, or if people want to see the football clubs. If Taylor Swift or the Foo Fighters were in town, it would be exactly the same. Prices react to supply and demand. So I don't have a huge issue. And certainly in my experience when I was following Brighton in Europe, it was exactly the same. Hotel prices went through the roof. So what you did was that you got a room in a hotel about 40 or 50 miles away. So for anybody planning, you just have to be a little bit smart in terms of this. But flight prices have gone through the roof. Ticket prices. If you're not part of the England fan group and you don't get tickets for all these matches, it's going to cost you far in excess of that. We're already seeing tickets just for the final itself peaking at around about $60,000 to $70,000 for a single ticket at a central location. And remember, FIFA are the official ticket tout of the FIFA World Cup, and they'll be taking their 25 to 30% off that.
Yeah, I mean, it's staggering, really, isn't it? And good luck if anyone out there is listening is planning to follow their team for the tournament, or even just going to any of the World Cup. Let us know if you want to. The cost that you are having to bear to do that. We'd be fascinated to know. So let us know in questions at Price of Football. And don't forget, you can now join our Price of Football Club, where you'll get ad-free listening, access to our full back catalogue, bonus episodes, Zoom quiz invites, and more. Just go to priceoffootball.com and click on Join the Club to sign up today. If you have a question you'd like answered on the show, email us at questions@priceoffootball.com. Also, any messages for Kevin, we will forward those on to him. Don't forget, you can follow us on X, and you can find us on YouTube. And if you'd like to buy our books, you can find details on our website, priceoffootball.com. Just time for a final word from you, Kieran.
Again, on behalf of Kevin and all of us, thanks so much for sending in those kind words. We read one of the emails today, and I think it's fair to say that Guy and I were both in tears. It was such a moving thing. and we really appreciate your support from so many different ways.
Yeah.
If you want to be a member of the club, again, fantastic, and we're looking forward to the Christmas quiz. We're not sure who's going to be hosting the Christmas quiz. It could be producer Guy. We might be. Kevin might be in the position. It's 2 or 3 days before Christmas Day itself, and we're already getting the elves ready to celebrate. So that's that to look forward to. That's all part of being the benefits of being a member of the club and the additional shows and so on. But there's another way that you support us, and it won't cost you anything apart from 30 seconds of your time. It does make a difference. We are a very small, independent organisation, and we're fighting against the machine, but we're doing what we can. And just give us a little review. Scribble a few words. Doesn't matter what you say. You could even say you would rather have the show presented by Ryan Reynolds and Joe Brand. Two fairly feisty people in their own right, and very, very amusing. And I'd certainly listen to that. Joe, of course, is a fellow Crystal Palace fan, so I thought, I'd have the link, and the tenuous link to Ryan Reynolds is this. And I always say this on University Open Day when I'm there with my baseball cap facing back to front, and I'm trying to throw a few shapes to impress these somewhat baffled-looking 18-year-olds. Ryan Reynolds follows me on Twitter, so I'm down with the kids.
Brilliant. You realise you just said a fellow Crystal Palace fan?
Well, a fellow Crystal Palace fan to Kevin.
Okay, fine.
Okay, I've got my get-out clause.
I thought you'd changed there, Kieran.
No. I've changed in many ways, producer Guy, but there are some limits that I have.
Good. You've got your own line in the sand. Thanks, Kieran, as always, and thanks for listening. We'll see you soon.
Bye.
The price of football. The price of football.
You've finally broken loose from work. 3 friends, 1 tea time, and then the text. Honey, there's water in the basement. Not exactly how you pictured your Saturday. That's when you call us, Cincinnati Insurance. We always answer the call, because real protection means showing up, even when things are in the rough. Cincinnati Insurance. Let us make your bad day better. Find an agent at CINFIN.com.